Today is October 31st, and so today I want to talk to you about Martin Luther's Reformation. In August of 1513, Martin Luther was 29 years old. He was an Augustinian monk driven to this monastic order out of his times of overwhelming spiritual trial, terror, despair. You could call it a religious crisis. But Luther didn't find relief from all this in this time in the monastery. He often had an overwhelming feeling of having been abandoned by God's grace and of being lost forever. Less than a year after his ordination in his first Mass, Luther started teaching at the newly founded University of Wittenberg. In 1513, Martin Luther began to lecture on the book of Psalms at that university. In a day when many theologians knew very little of the Bible, Martin Luther loved the Bible and loved teaching it. As a professor, Martin Luther taught through the Psalms verse by verse at the university, and he came upon a verse that troubled his already troubled soul. Psalm 31 verse 1 says this, "In you, O Lord, I put my trust, let me never be ashamed. Deliver me in your righteousness." Now, to be honest, this passage confused Martin Luther. How could God's righteousness save him? The righteousness of God, his great justice, could only condemn him to hell as a punishment for his sins. One night up in a tower in the monastery, Luther thought about this passage in the Psalms, and then he also read and connected it with Romans chapter 1, verse 17, which says this, "For in it," that is in the gospel, "the righteousness of God is revealed from faith to faith." As Luther thought about Romans 1:17, it didn't bless him. According to this verse, not only did the law reveal the righteousness of God, but so also did the gospel reveal the righteousness of God. Luther said he thought about this all the time until he finally understood what the righteousness of God revealed by the gospel is. It's not the holy righteousness of God that condemns the guilty sinner, but it is the God kind of righteousness that is given to the sinner who puts their trust in Jesus Christ. Martin Luther said of this experience, "I grasped the truth that the righteousness of God is the righteousness whereby, through grace and sheer mercy, He justifies us by faith. Therefore, I felt myself to be reborn and to have gone through open doors into paradise. This passage of Paul became to me a gateway into heaven." You see, with that experience, Martin Luther was born again, and the Reformation began in his heart. Now, we don't have an exact date for when Martin Luther had this experience in the tower, when Romans 1:17 became for him a passageway into heaven. But there's no doubt about it. Something very important happened on October 31st, 1517. On that day, Martin Luther published 95 talking points or debating points about the church practice of selling indulgences. For the people of Germany and Europe, that turned out to be the spark that lit the fire of the Reformation. Nevertheless, I don't think that October 31st was the most important day in Luther's life. The most important day was when he realized that day in his life that he could have the righteousness of God by faith. The day of that tower experience was his Reformation Day. It was when the truth of Romans chapter 1 verses 16 and 17 became real to his life. Let me read it to you. "For I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power of God to salvation for everyone who believes, for the Jew first and also for the Greek. For in it the righteousness of God is revealed from faith to faith, as it is written, the just shall live by faith." So here's my question. Is that real for you? Have you had your Reformation Day? This brings it right to each one of us today. Are you saved by faith? Are you living by faith? That's the best thing we can think about and consider here on this day, October 31st.